Yeah, hey everyone. So as we've talked about the past series of topics within Java, we've talked about hung processes. So specifically what they are, how to identify a process to be hung, process level workarounds within the platform. So for example, allowing simultaneous executions for the process is already running error, as well as making a unique copy of a process so that there's no reference to the hung process from it. But as we've talked about, there is limitations to that. And the reason this topic exists today is we're going to talk about the Linux operating system specifically. So as mentioned previously, we said that the way to resolve these problems at a server operating system level is going to be different for Windows and Linux, as well as for forked and non-forked executions. So what we'll cover today is I set up a Linux machine. I have a cloud, which by default has forked executions enabled, as well as a local runtime. So we'll essentially create processes that are replicas to be hung. And we'll talk about how to kill both a forked execution and a non-forked execution, an execution that is part of the parent JVM. So with that said, we've talked about the term forked execution before. So forked execution, essentially what happens is the operating system is told to spin up another JVM. So this forked JVM is going to have its own unique process ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to find that process ID for that execution, and we're going to kill it. So with that said, I'm going to execute my sleep script process. So here's my sleep script on my cloud. So just wait for it to spin up. Awesome. So we're going to go to viewing the extended information. We're going to grab this process ID. So what I'm going to run on my Linux terminal where this is running is PS. So list all active process information. I'm going to add an EF argument. You can add different arguments just per the PS output. There's several others. This is just the one that I'm most comfortable with. And I'm going to grep the execution ID. So what this says is list the actively running process that's running this execution ID. So the output, as you can see here, so it's user ID and then process ID. So we need to kill this. But as you can see, it is Boomi related, whatever this specific process ID is. As you can see, something with Java, there's a memory allocation, and you can see it launches a forked execution. So this is what we're looking for. So I'm going to run a kill dash 9 and then the process ID. So it's killed. So to my knowledge, there's a task that runs, let's say, every 15 minutes. So let's say at time 0, 15, 30, 45. That's going to check whether this process is still on the server. And if not, it's going to result in an unknown failure. So that's what you'll see in the UI once it gets to that point in time. So we'll see at what point it runs, but you will see an unknown failure. So the second condition is, let's say that it's not forked, but it's rather a part of the main JVM. So here's my sleep script. I'm going to run it on my Atom. So like I said, this is a part of the parent JVM. So there's no way to explicitly kill the parent JVM, so to speak. So with that said, oftentimes the result of this is you're going to have to restart your runtime. So what you would have to do, so here's my hung Atom. Let's go into here. Just give it 1 second. So startup properties, I'm going to go to my Atom install directory, and we're going to look at the execution current directory. Leave a dot there for some reason. Just give me a second. Great. So with that said, I'm going to go into the execution. So the goal here is to remove any reference of the currently running execution that is hung. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to know the execution ID. So I'm going to view the extended information. Here's my execution ID. So within the execution current directory any cur files, any dat files, any .lck files that reference the currently running execution we want to remove. So I'm going to do RM. Great. So now that that's removed, assuming this was actually hung and we went through the steps of terminating and force terminating, if you give it 15 minutes or so and it's still not killed, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to restart. So what I would do is I would cd into bin and I would make sure my Atom's there. So I would /Atom restart or stop and start it. And then from there, if it's still hung, what you can do is just you go to actions and you terminate the process execution. Pretty straightforward. That's really all you have to do. Just note that if it is a non-forked execution, that there is a very good chance you're going to have to restart your environment, which is why we gave other process level workarounds and items of that sort, just because there's no way around that. So customers may ask, why is this happening in my runtime? What caused this to be hung? And from there, we'll talk about a couple system properties to implement. We'll talk about a couple other concepts with that. But before we get to that, we're going to have to understand how it works on Windows. And then from there, we'll talk about thread dumps, heap dumps, all of artifacts of that sort. All right, sounds good, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.